Uh, I wanted to touch on yesterday's school shooting in Parkland, Florida, which is an incredibly scary topic to be talking about, and just incredibly unnerving and difficult to hear about, difficult to read about, and difficult to process. On my own as an adult, let alone trying to figure out how to process it as a parent. Um, 17 students killed, or 17 people killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, and it's been all over the news, justifiably so. As we, as a nation, as the Parkland community itself, tries to grapple with something that just doesn't really have an explanation at all, or a way to make sense of it necessarily, and trying to figure out why this happened. I'm sure as time goes on, the police investigation will reveal some of the whys and hows of this occurring. But it still, even as we learn those facts, doesn't necessarily make it any easier for us to come to grips with this kind of a violent act in a place that we all want to feel and hope is safe for our children. So as we as adults try and figure out how do we, maintain a positive outlook on the world? How do we understand the world that's out there, and how do we grapple with hearing about this kind of high-profile act of violence? I thought it'd be helpful to take a few minutes tonight to go over some tips for us as parents for helping our kids deal with this, because unfortunately, while we may want to shield them from these events, and certainly some shielding is developmentally appropriate depending upon the age of your child, they are going to hear about these kinds of events. We live in a world where there is a 24-hour news cycle, and CNN or Fox News or MSNBC is going to be on someplace, or even if you're not getting your news from a traditional media outlet, the number of online websites, or even just some of the ads that may pop up, or what may come up when you log into Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. So I wanted to go over just some general guidelines in terms of helping children feel safe by trying to reestablish that sense of normalcy and giving them a sense of security and a place to talk about their fears. So I have a handful of things that I want to run through that I think will be helpful as you have these conversations over the next few days with your children. And I wish this would be the topic that we never have to cover again here at the Innovative Dad. But unfortunately, I wish I could be that optimistic. All right, so let's start off by just making sure you need to reassure your children that they're safe. Emphasize that schools are safe places, that you want to validate their feelings. You want to let them know that any emotions they're having about this are okay when they're exposed to this level of a tragedy. Get them talking about their feelings and help them put it into perspective. And the system is expressing those feelings appropriately. You really want to make that time to talk about this, and use what they ask you as a way of figuring out how much information that you're going to be providing. Bear in mind that our kids don't readily talk about their feelings. It's something that I've talked about in the past about really building up your child's emotional vocabulary. And the emotion coaching that you can do to help them with this, to get them to a place where they're able to really externalize those emotions. But, be patient. You may need to look for clues that they do want to talk. If they're a little bit more clingy than usual, or if they're hovering around you, They may be looking for something other than talking as an outlet. If there are more of a writer or more artistically bent, they want to write, draw, play music, whatever it is. Younger children may need a more concrete activity to help them express their emotions and get them out there. So getting them to draw is not a bad thing. You're talking about picture books or even some imaginative play. You really want to make sure that your explanations are kept at a developmentally appropriate level. For younger children, keep it brief, keep it simple, and keep that information balanced with that your school and your home are safe and that there are adults there to protect them. You can give them some examples of how school safety works, talk about locked doors, talk about the emergency drills that they may be practicing at school. Fire drills are a great example. Every kid has been exposed to a fire drill. For upper elementary and early middle school kiddos, they're going to have more questions. They're at their age where they're asking a lot more questions. And they may want to know, am I really safe? And they may need some help separating out reality from some of the things that they're imagining could be happening. And you can talk about things that their school principals and other school leaders or the community leaders are doing to provide safe schools, the role of the police, the communication that schools have with the police and fire department and the way that works. For upper middle and high school students, for your older kids, they're going to start to form their own opinions about why violence happens in schools, why violence happens in society. They're becoming thinking and feeling individuals in their own right. They may have their own ideas about how their school could be safer or how to stop something like this in the larger community. You want to emphasize with them that they have a role in making sure that they're in a safe environment. Don't allow somebody you don't know to slide in the front door of the school building after you, and making sure that they are reporting threats. That sign we see on the highway, see something, say something, and talking about that. Having them if they've got a personal safety concern at school, sharing that with the school administrator, and then making sure that they take advantage of the supports that are in place at their schools for their own emotional needs. School psychologists, school counselors, talking to a trusted teacher. Okay. You're also going to want to review safety procedures at home and at school with them. What's in place? Who's an adult that you can go to at school that if you feel threatened or you feel at risk? What could you do if you're at home and you don't feel safe? This is a great opportunity. If you don't already have hanging up on your refrigerator all of your emergency contact numbers, make tonight the night that you go and do that. Get everybody's number, put their name attached to it, print it out on the computer, handwrite it, I don't care, grab a magnet, and put that up someplace visible in your kitchen so that your kids have access to it and they know if something scary is going on, here are numbers of people that I can reach, whether it's the neighbors, your grandparents, aunts, uncles, whomever. Put the number for 911 on there. As silly as it may feel, writing 911, put that down there. The non-emergency number for the police department as well. Poison control. And if you've got older kids, you know what? Put the suicide prevention hotline number on there, as well as the crisis text number. You never know who's going to see it. And I think that's something that I've touched on in the past when we've talked about depression and some of these other Facebook Live conversations. As always, following something like this, you want to keep an eye on your child's emotional state. Kids don't always share exactly how they're feeling. Pay attention to changes in their patterns of behavior, the way they're acting, eating, sleeping, and that'll give you a sense of, is there some anxiety or discomfort there? In most kids, over time, these will start to diminish and they'll go back to what is viewed as normalcy for them. For those kids that have had some kind of trauma exposure in the past or personal loss or have other mental health concerns or other special needs that may put them at greater risk for more of a severe reaction. And if you get concerned, reach out to a mental health professional like a psychologist. Big thing, and this is something that I really recommend even for ourselves, and particularly if you're a news junkie, and I know that I tend to fall into that category sometimes. You need to limit your, I'm going to say not just television viewing, but your internet viewing of these events. Pay attention on what's on the screen when your kids are around, whether that screen is on your computer, your phone, or the television. Getting developmentally inappropriate information can be a place where a younger child can then create more anxiety. And we're all trying to process this right now, but you need to think about when and where you're having those conversations. And are you doing that in front of children or your teens and adolescents? I would encourage you to whenever possible, you do want to make sure that you're not exposing your kids to some of the vitriol that is going on social media right now around these, as people from opposing aspects of how to solve this problem are battling it out in the comments section, so to speak. The other piece is that really, whenever possible, maintain that normal routine. Get everybody back on their regular schedule. It really can help both physical and mental health. It is always really good to make sure that your kids are getting plenty of sleep, getting regular meals, that they're getting exercise, and staying on top of schoolwork and extracurricular activities. Okay. This is just some general guidelines. A few other things to think about in terms of points to emphasize when talking to children. Make sure that you share that schools are safe places and that schools work with parents and public safety providers, police, fire departments, emergency responders to help keep you safe. That we all play a role in school safety. If you see something, say something. Talk about the difference between reporting versus tattling or gossiping. You can provide information that may prevent harm by telling somebody directly or by telling a trusted adult. I always talk to my kids about are you trying to get somebody out of danger or into trouble? And that's a good mantra to repeat for kids about this, because if you're thinking that you're going to tell somebody because you want to get somebody out of danger, then that's a good reason to have that, to do that sharing. You may want to touch upon the difference between possibility and probability. We know that all things are possible, good, bad, and the ugly. However, the probability of something happening in your own community is much lower. You may want to touch on that sometimes people do bad things that hurt other people, and for a variety of reasons, not being able to handle their anger. And you can talk to kids about what do you do when you're angry and how do you respond. Could be because of exposure or because of mental illness. You can talk about how adults, whether it's parents or teachers or doctors or public safety officials, or they work to try and get these people help and to help them and keep them from hurting others. And that we really need to know how to get help if we start to feel really upset or angry, and that we should want to stay away from drugs and alcohol because of the impact that can have on how we make decisions. Gun safety, this is a touchy topic for a lot of people, but generally you should be talking to your kids about staying away from guns. Guns are something children should only be exposed to and handled under very tight adult supervision, if at all. You may want to start asking the question when kids go over to a play date, is there a gun in the home, and how is that gun locked up? Or other weapons. Knives are just as readily accessible. We know that access to guns is a leading risk factor for deadly violence. And as much as we can keep them away from our kids, we want to. And I think the last thing to emphasize with our kids is that violence, aggression, is not a solution to your personal problems. Encourage your kids to be part of anti-violence programs in school, how to learn conflict mediation skills, and to learn to seek help from adult if they or somebody they know is struggling with emotions that they really can't control. So just wanted to provide everyone with some thoughts that I'm having as a parent and as a psychologist coming out of watching this tragedy unfold in Parkland and wanting to make sure that we as parents have the tools to be able to talk to our children about these kinds of events and things that we should be thinking about ourselves in terms of the news environment that we're creating for our children. So a sobering evening, a difficult topic, but one that I'm glad that at least there are some tools out there for me to be able to share with everyone around this. Look forward to talking to you in the future about some more positive parenting topics rather than this rather difficult one. So good night, and feel free to reach out to me via Messenger or on the Facebook page if you've got further questions about how to have these conversations with your children, or if you've got some questions about how to have that approach, or if your kid has asked a difficult question around this you're not sure to answer. I'm happy to serve as a resource for you. All right. Have a good evening.